The alien ship floated high above Earth like a silent metal whale. Its name was the Silent Tide, and it had been watching humans for many months. The ship was invisible to human eyes and machines. Special alien technology made sure no one on Earth could see it. Commander Thexval stood on the bridge of his ship. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. His uniform was dark blue with silver lines. Next to him stood Morden, his science officer. Morden was shorter, but had the same gray skin and black eyes as all Velkari people. "Look at them down there," Thexval said, pointing at the large screen in front of them. The screen showed a thick green jungle on Earth. Such simple creatures. They think they are so smart with their little weapons and machines. Morden nodded and touched some buttons on his control panel. The screen zoomed in closer to show the jungle floor. "The humans are doing military training exercises today," he said. "Their best soldiers are down there." Thexval smiled, showing sharp white teeth. "Perfect. We can test our stealth technology against their finest warriors. It will be good practice before we invade their planet." The Velkari had been planning to take over Earth for 2 years. They wanted the planet's water and metals. They thought humans were weak and stupid. The Velkari had technology that could make them invisible. They could hide from human eyes, cameras, and heat sensors. They believed nothing could detect them. Down in the jungle, the morning sun was just starting to shine through the thick green leaves. The air was hot and wet. Strange birds called out from high in the trees. Insects buzzed everywhere. The jungle was alive with sounds and movement. A group of human soldiers moved slowly through the thick plants. They wore green and brown uniforms that helped them blend with the jungle. Their faces were painted with mud and green paint. They carried advanced weapons and communication equipment. The leader of the group was a man named Taimin. He was 30 years old and had been a soldier for 12 years. He was not very tall, but his body was strong and lean. His eyes were dark and always watching. He moved through the jungle like he had been born there. Taimin had learned to fight in jungles from his grandfather. His grandfather had been a soldier in old wars, long before Taimin was born. The old man had taught Taimin that the jungle was not just a place to fight in. It was a living thing that could help you or hurt you. Behind Taimin walked Bo-Ram, a woman who handled all their radio communications. She was 26 years old and very smart with technology. She could fix any machine and talk to people far away using her radio equipment. Bo-Ram was small but tough. She never complained about the heat or the heavy equipment she carried. The third member of their team was Wu Jin. He was an expert with explosives and heavy weapons. Wu Jin was 28 years old and built like a tree trunk. He was strong enough to carry the biggest guns and smart enough to make bombs from almost anything. Despite his size, he could move quietly through the jungle. "Command, this is Tiger Team," Bo-Ram spoke quietly into her radio. "We are at Checkpoint Alpha. No enemy contact. Moving to Checkpoint Beta." A voice crackled back through her earpiece. "Copy. Tiger Team. Continue mission as planned." The 3 soldiers were part of a larger training exercise. Other teams were moving through different parts of the jungle. They were practicing how to find and fight enemies who might be hiding. They did not know that real enemies were already watching them from space. Up on the Silent Tide, Thexval was getting excited. "This is perfect," he told Morden. "Send down 3 of our best scouts. Tell them to get as close to the humans as possible. I want to see if these Earth creatures can detect our stealth technology." Morden looked worried. "Commander, is that safe?" What if something goes wrong? Thexval waved his hand like he was brushing away a fly. What could go wrong? These humans are primitive. They use gunpowder weapons and metal machines. Our scouts have personal cloaking devices and energy dampeners. The humans will never know we are there. 3 Velkari warriors stepped forward. Their names were Kethvar, Zilnoth, and Yextai. They were the best stealth specialists on the ship. Each one wore a special suit that could make them invisible. The suits also hid their body heat and muffled any sounds they made. Kethvar was the leader of the 3. He was older and had done many secret missions. Zilnoth was young and eager to prove himself. Yextai was quiet and careful, but very skilled. Remember, Thexval told them, this is just a test. Do not harm the humans unless they attack you first. Just get close enough to touch them. Show them how helpless they are. 3 scouts saluted their commander. They walked to a small transport ship inside the silent tide. Within minutes, they were flying down toward the jungle. Their ship was also invisible to human detection. Back in the jungle, Taemin suddenly stopped walking. He held up his hand, and Boram and Wu Jin stopped behind him. Taemin stood very still and listened. He heard the normal jungle sounds, birds, insects, small animals moving in the leaves. But something felt different. "What is it?" Boram whispered. Taemin shook his head. "I don't know. Maybe nothing. But something doesn't feel right." Wu Jin looked around through the scope on his rifle. "I don't see anything unusual." Taemin trusted his feelings. His grandfather had taught him that the jungle would always tell you when danger was near. You just had to know how to listen. "Stay alert," he told his team. "Something is watching us." The Velkari transport ship landed silently in a clearing, half a mile away from the human soldiers. The 3 alien scouts activated their cloaking devices and disappeared from sight. They began moving through the jungle toward Taemin's team. Kethvar led the way. He was confident and careless. He had used his cloaking device on dozens of worlds. No primitive species had ever detected him. He pushed through the jungle plants without worrying about the noise he made. His suit would hide the sound. Zilnoth followed behind, trying to impress his leader. He wanted to get closest to the humans. He dreamed of touching one of them without being caught. It would be a great story to tell back on the ship. Yextai moved more carefully. He was the most experienced scout, and he had learned that overconfidence was dangerous. Still, he believed their technology made them invisible to these primitive humans. The 3 aliens moved closer to Taemin's team. They could see the humans clearly through their advanced visors. The humans looked so simple and weak. This was going to be easy. But up in space, Morden was watching the life signs of all 6 beings in the jungle. Something strange was happening. The human leader's heart rate was increasing. His brain activity was changing. Morden had never seen patterns like this before. "Commander," Morden said, "the human leader is showing signs of heightened awareness. It's almost like he knows something is wrong." Thexval laughed. "Impossible. Our scouts are completely invisible. The human is probably just nervous about the training exercise." Down in the jungle, Taemin was becoming more and more certain that they were being watched. He could not see anything or hear anything wrong. But every instinct his grandfather had taught him was screaming that danger was near. The test was about to begin. The 3 Velkari scouts moved through the jungle like ghosts. Their cloaking devices bent light around their bodies, making them completely invisible to human eyes. Their suits also blocked their body heat and absorbed the sounds of their footsteps. To any human machine or sensor, they simply did not exist. Kethvar was enjoying himself. He had been on many worlds and seen many alien species. None of them had ever detected him. These humans would be no different. He pushed aside a large leaf and stepped closer to where the human soldiers were walking. "This is too easy," Zilnoth whispered into his communication device. The other scouts could hear him, but the humans could not. "Look how slowly they move. Look how loud they are. These creatures are like blind animals." Yextai did not respond. He was more careful than the others. Something about the human leader bothered him. The man moved differently than the others. He seemed to be listening to things that Yextai could not hear. Down on the jungle floor, Taimin had stopped his team again. This time he knelt down and put his ear close to the ground. His grandfather had taught him this trick many years ago. The earth could tell you things that your eyes and ears could not. "Boram," he said quietly, "check your equipment. Are you picking up any strange signals?" Boram looked at her radio and scanning devices. Everything looked normal. "No, Taimin. All frequencies are clear. No unusual electronic activity." "Wujin, what about thermal readings?" Wujin checked his heat-sensing scope. He scanned the area around them slowly. "Nothing unusual, just normal jungle temperatures." But Taimin was not satisfied. He stood up and looked around the jungle with new eyes. Not the eyes of a modern soldier, but the eyes his grandfather had taught him to use. Eyes that could see things that machines could not detect. He noticed that some birds had stopped singing in one area. There was a patch of jungle that seemed too quiet. He saw that certain insects were flying around an empty space, like they were avoiding something invisible. "There," he pointed to a spot about 50 feet away. "Something is there." His teammates looked where he was pointing. They saw nothing but trees and plants. "What do you see?" Boram asked. "I don't see anything, but the jungle sees it. Look at how the birds are acting. Look at how the bugs are flying. Something is there that doesn't belong." Kethvar heard the humans talking. He was standing exactly where the human leader was pointing. But that was impossible. The human could not see him or detect him in any way. It had to be a coincidence. "Don't worry," he told the other scouts. "The human is just guessing. He can't actually see us." But Taimin was not guessing. His grandfather had taught him that the jungle was full of signs, if you knew how to read them. Animals and insects could sense things that humans could not sense with their normal senses. When the natural pattern of the jungle changed, it meant something foreign was there. Taimin began to move in a way that his teammates had never seen before. He did not walk in straight lines like a modern soldier. Instead, he moved like his ancestors had moved hundreds of years ago when they hunted in these same jungles. He picked up a handful of dirt and let it fall through his fingers. He watched which way the dust moved in the air. He looked for places where the dust seemed to swirl around nothing. On the alien ship, Morden was watching everything with growing concern. "Commander, the human's behavior is very unusual. He seems to be using some kind of primitive detection method." Thexval looked at the screen with interest. "Primitive detection? What do you mean?" "He's not using any technology. But he's acting like he knows our scouts are there. Look at his movement patterns. He's systematically checking areas where our people are located." Thexval frowned. This was not supposed to happen. Their stealth technology was perfect. No primitive species should be able to detect it. "Tell our scouts to be more careful. Maybe they're making too much noise." Down in the jungle, Yextai was starting to worry. The human leader was getting closer to his position. Worse, the human was starting to do strange things. He was breaking small branches and throwing them in the air. He was scattering leaves and watching how they fell. "What is the human doing?" Zilnoth asked. "I think he's trying to detect us," Yextai replied. "Some of these primitive species have instincts that our technology can't fool." Kethvar laughed. "Impossible. Our suits are perfect. No creature in the galaxy can detect us when we're cloaked." But Taimin was getting results. When he threw leaves into the air, some of them seemed to hit something invisible and fall strangely. When he scattered dust, some of it outlined shapes that should not be there. He turned to his team. "We're being watched by something we can't see," he said. "I don't know what it is, but it's there." Boram and Wu Jin had worked with Taimin for years. They had learned to trust his instincts even when they didn't understand them. If Taimin said something was wrong, something was wrong. "What do we do?" Wu Jin asked. Taimin thought for a moment. His grandfather had told him stories about fighting enemies who could hide themselves. The old man had said that when you could not see your enemy, you had to make them show themselves. "We're going to set a trap," Taimin said. "Not for animals, for whatever is watching us." He began to gather materials from the jungle floor. Thin vines, thorny branches, and loose dirt. His teammates watched as he started to build something they had never seen before. It was not a modern military trap. It was something much older. The three alien scouts watched the human leader work. They could not understand what he was doing. It looked like he was just playing with jungle plants. "Should we move away?" Yextai asked. "No," Kethvar said. "I want to see what this primitive creature thinks he can do. It will be amusing." But Morden, watching from space, was not amused. The human's behavior was showing patterns that the alien computers could not understand. It was like the human was using knowledge that was thousands of years old, but still effective. "Commander," Morden said, "I recommend we call our scouts back. This human is not acting like other humans we've studied." "Nonsense," Texval replied. "Our scouts are perfectly safe. Let them continue the test." Taimin finished building his trap. It was a circle of thin tripwires made from jungle vines. The wires were so thin they were almost invisible, but if anything walked through them, they would move and make noise. In the center of the circle, he placed some of his military rations. To anyone watching, it would look like he had dropped his food by accident. "Now we wait," he told his team. "If something invisible is watching us, it might be curious about what we're doing." The three scouts watched as the human team moved away from the area. The trap looked harmless enough. Just some food left behind by careless humans. Zilnoth was the youngest and most eager. "I could get close enough to touch that food," he said. "Imagine the look on the commander's face when I tell him I touched their supplies while standing. Right next to them." "Don't be stupid," Yextai warned. "This could be a trap." But Kethvar was curious too. "What kind of trap could it be? They can't see us. They don't know we're here. It's probably just dropped food." As the human team moved further away, the aliens began to relax. Maybe the human leader's strange behavior had just been random. Maybe they had been worried about nothing. That was exactly what Taimin was hoping they would think. About 100 feet away, hidden behind thick trees, Taimin and his team waited. Boram had her radio ready. Wu Jin had his weapon prepared, and Taimin watched his trap with the patience his grandfather had taught him. "How long do we wait?" Boram whispered. "As long as it takes," Taimin replied. "If something is really there, curiosity will bring it to us." Taimin crouched behind a large tree, watching his trap. His breathing was slow and quiet. His grandfather had taught him how to wait like this when he was just a boy. "The jungle will teach you patience," the old man had said, "and patience will teach you how to survive." 20 minutes passed. The alien scouts were getting bored. Kethvar had moved closer to the food that Taemin had left behind. He was standing just outside the circle of thin tripwires, studying what the humans had done. "It's just dropped rations," he told the other scouts through his communication device. "These humans are so careless they don't even keep track of their food." But Yextai was not convinced. He had been watching the human leader carefully. There was something different about this one. The way he moved, the way he looked at things. It was not like other humans they had studied. "Kethvar, be careful," he warned. "Something about this feels wrong." Zilnoth laughed. "You worry too much, old friend. What can these primitive creatures do to us? They can't even see us." On the alien ship, Morden was studying the readings from his instruments. The human leader's brain activity was still strange. His heart rate was steady, like he was in a deep state of concentration. It reminded Morden of the meditation patterns he had seen in some advanced alien species. "Commander," he said, "the human leader is showing signs of enhanced awareness. His brain is operating in patterns we've never seen in humans before." Thexval looked at the data with interest. "Enhanced awareness? What do you mean?" "It's like he's using parts of his brain that most humans don't use. Like he's connected to his environment in a way that our computers can't measure." Down in the jungle, Taemin was indeed using abilities that his grandfather had taught him. The old man had learned these skills from his own grandfather, who had learned them from tribal hunters who had lived in these jungles for thousands of years. It was not magic or anything supernatural. It was just a way of paying attention to things that most modern people ignored. The way the air moved, the way plants bent when something brushed against them, the way insects and small animals reacted to things they could sense but not see. Taemin noticed something new. There was a spider web stretched between two bushes near his trap. The web was trembling slightly, but there was no wind. Something invisible was disturbing the air near the web. He looked more carefully at the area around his trap. A line of ants was walking across the ground, but their path curved around an empty space. The ants were walking around something that was not there, or something that appeared not to be there. Taemin made a decision. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small container. Inside was flour that he used for cooking. He had learned this trick from watching old war movies with his grandfather. Very quietly, he began to sprinkle the flour into the air downwind from his trap. The white powder drifted on the light jungle breeze toward where the invisible watchers might be standing. Kethvar saw the white powder drifting toward him. He stepped back quickly, but some of the flour settled on his cloaked form. To human eyes, it would look like flour floating in the shape of a person. "Clever little creature," he muttered, but he was not worried. He brushed the flour off his suit and moved to a different position, but Taemin had seen enough. For just a moment, the flour had outlined something that should not be there, something person-shaped and invisible. He turned to Bo-Ram and Wu-Jin, who were hidden nearby. Using hand signals that made no sound, he told them what he had seen. Their eyes went wide with surprise and fear. Bo-Ram wanted to call for backup on her radio, but Taemin stopped her. If these invisible watchers had advanced technology, they might be listening to radio communications. Better to handle this quietly. Taemin began to move through the jungle in a way that amazed his teammates. He seemed to flow between the trees like water. His feet made no sound on the jungle floor. He avoided every branch that might snap, every leaf that might rustle. This was how his ancestors had hunted for food and fought their enemies. Before guns, before machines, before any kind of modern technology, just human intelligence and thousands of years of knowledge passed down from father to son. Yextai watched the human leader move and felt a chill of fear. The human was hunting them. Using no technology at all, just instinct and skill, he was tracking 3 invisible aliens through the jungle. "We should leave," Yextai told the others. "This human is dangerous." "Dangerous?" Kethvar laughed. "He's just a primitive creature with no real weapons. Watch this." Kethvar moved closer to where Taemin was walking. He wanted to get close enough to touch the human. It would be a great joke to play on these earth creatures, but as Kethvar moved, he stepped on a small branch. The branch made a tiny snapping sound. Most humans would never have heard it over the normal jungle noises. Taemin heard it. He stopped, moving, and stood perfectly still. His head turned slightly toward where the sound had come from. Kethvar was standing just 10 feet away, completely invisible. Taemin reached into his pack again. This time he pulled out a small smoke grenade. It was not the kind used for hiding or signaling. It was a special type that created very thin, light smoke that would show air currents. He pulled the pin and rolled the grenade toward where he thought the invisible watcher might be standing. Gray smoke began to pour out of the grenade. The smoke was so light that it moved with every tiny air current. It swirled around trees, flowed over rocks, and showed the shape of everything it touched, including the shape of Kethvar. The alien scout appeared as a person-shaped hole in the smoke. The gray mist flowed around his invisible body, showing exactly where he was standing and how big he was. "Impossible," Kethvar whispered. But Taemin was already moving. He had picked up a long stick from the jungle floor, not to use as a weapon, but as a tool. He began poking the stick through the smoke, trying to touch the invisible figure. The stick hit something solid, something that was not supposed to be there. Kethvar panicked. He had been touched by a primitive human who should not be able to see him. His training told him to retreat, but his pride made him angry. He decided to fight back. Kethvar had a weapon that could stun humans without killing them. He pulled it from his belt and aimed it at Taemin, but as he raised the weapon, his arm disturbed the smoke around him, showing Taemin exactly where he was. Taemin dove to the side just as a beam of blue energy shot through the air where he had been standing. The beam hit a tree and left a burned mark on the bark. Now Boram and Woojin knew for certain that they were dealing with something beyond human technology. The invisible watchers had weapons that could shoot energy beams, but Taemin was not afraid. His grandfather had taught him that fear was just information. It told you that danger was present, but it did not tell you to give up. "If you can't see your enemy," his grandfather had said, "make them come to you. If you can't match their weapons, use weapons they don't understand." Taemin began to use the jungle itself as his weapon. He knew where every rock was, every root, every hole in the ground. The invisible watchers did not. He led Kethvar into a chase through the thick jungle. The alien scout could see Taemin clearly through his advanced visor, but he could not see all the natural traps that Taemin was leading him toward. Kethvar ran straight into a low-hanging vine that caught him across the throat. He stumbled backward into a patch of thorny plants that tore at his cloaking suit. His equipment began to malfunction. For just a moment, parts of Kethvar became visible. Taemin saw gray skin, black eyes, and technology that looked like nothing from Earth. Now, he knew for certain what they were dealing with. The invisible watchers were not human. They were something else entirely. Aliens. On the alien ship, alarms were beginning to sound. Kethvar's suit was damaged and sending distress signals. The test was going very wrong. "Commander," Morden said, urgently, "Kethvar is in trouble. His cloaking device is failing." Thexval stared at the screen in disbelief. One primitive human had somehow detected and damaged one of their best scouts. It should have been impossible. "Send help," he ordered. "Send everyone." Taemin watched as parts of the alien scout flickered in and out of visibility. The creature's cloaking device was clearly damaged. Through the gaps in the failing technology, he could see gray skin and strange black eyes that were definitely not human. Kethvar was panicking. His perfect stealth suit was betraying him. Pieces of his body kept appearing and disappearing as the damaged technology struggled to work. He tried to retreat deeper into the jungle, but he was no longer invisible. "Zil Noth! Yex Tai, help me!" he called through his communication device. The other two alien scouts could see what was happening. Their leader was being hunted by a single human who seemed to understand things that should be impossible for a primitive creature to understand. "We have to help him," Zil Noth said. "No," Yextai replied. "This is a trap. The human wants us to reveal ourselves." But Zilnoth was young and loyal to his team leader. He began moving toward where Kethvar was struggling with his damaged equipment. Taemin saw the movement in the jungle. His eyes had become like his grandfather's eyes, trained to see things that did not belong. A branch bent with no wind to move it. Leaves rustled with no animal to disturb them. Another invisible watcher was coming. He reached into his pack and pulled out everything he could use: more flour, a small mirror, some string, and his water bottle. His grandfather had taught him that a clever hunter could make weapons from anything the jungle provided. First, he scattered flour in a wide circle around the area. The white powder would stick to anything invisible that walked through it. Then he poured water from his bottle onto a flat rock, creating a small pool that would reflect light in unusual ways if something invisible stepped in it. Boram and Wu Jin watched their leader work with amazement. They had trained with the most advanced military equipment in the world, but Taemin was fighting alien technology with flour and water. "Should we call for backup?" Boram whispered into her radio. Taemin held up his hand to stop her. "Not yet," he said quietly. "They might be listening to our communications, and if we call in helicopters and more soldiers, people might get hurt." He was right to be careful. On the alien ship, Morden was indeed monitoring all human radio frequencies in the area. "Commander," Morden reported, "the humans have not called for help yet. They seem to be trying to handle this alone." Thexval was pacing back and forth on his bridge. This was supposed to be a simple test of their stealth technology. Now one of his best scouts was compromised, and the humans seemed to be fighting back with primitive but effective methods. "How many more scouts do we have available?" he asked. 12 more, all with perfect stealth suits. Send them all. I want this situation contained before it gets worse." Down in the jungle, Zilnoth was trying to reach his team leader. But as he moved through Taemin's flour trap, white powder began to stick to his invisible form. Soon, he looked like a person-shaped ghost walking through the jungle. Taemin saw the flour-covered alien and smiled grimly. His grandfather would have been proud. The old tricks still worked, even against technology from the stars. But now he had 2 invisible enemies to deal with, and more might be coming. He needed to level the playing field. He began to move through the jungle in a pattern that confused the aliens. He was not trying to escape or hide. Instead, he was leading them into an area where he had all the advantages. There was a place in this part of the jungle where his grandfather had taken him many times as a boy. It was a small clearing surrounded by thick trees. But it was not just any clearing. It was full of natural traps that had been there for thousands of years, hidden roots that could trip an unwary walker, soft ground that looked solid but would sink under weight, hanging vines that could tangle anyone who walked into them, and in the center of the clearing a small stream that reflected light in ways that could reveal invisible things. Taemin led the two alien scouts toward this clearing. He moved like he was afraid and trying to escape. The aliens followed, thinking they were chasing a frightened human. Kethvar's suit was getting worse. More and more of his body kept appearing. He could see the human running ahead of him, and he was angry. No primitive creature should be able to defeat Velkari technology. He raised his energy weapon again and fired at Taemin. The blue beam scorched the ground where Taemin had been standing, but the human had already rolled behind. "A tree! You cannot hide forever, human!" Kethvar shouted. Taemin heard the alien speak and was surprised. The creature knew human language. That meant these beings had been studying Earth for a long time. "I'm not hiding," Taemin called back. "I'm hunting." He reached the edge of the clearing and stopped. This was where he would make his stand. Behind him, the two alien scouts were approaching fast. They thought they had him trapped. Taemin pulled his small mirror from his pack and used it to reflect sunlight across the clearing. The bright light revealed both alien scouts as they entered the area. The flower on Zilnoth's suit glittered in the light, and Kethvar's failing cloaking device created strange distortions in the reflected sunbeams. "There you are," Taemin said. He began to run across the clearing, but not in a straight line. He followed a path that his grandfather had taught him, stepping only on rocks and solid ground. The aliens, chasing him, did not know about the hidden dangers. Zilnoth stepped into what looked like solid ground, but was actually soft mud covered with leaves. His foot sank deep, and he fell forward. As he fell, his cloaking device was damaged by the impact. Kethvar, running close behind, tripped over a hidden root and crashed into a wall of hanging vines. The vines wrapped around his arms and legs, tangling him up while his malfunctioning suit flickered on and off. Both aliens were now partially visible and trapped in natural snares. But Taemin was not finished. He could hear more movement in the jungle around the clearing. The sounds were faint, but his trained ears could pick them out. More invisible watchers were coming. "Boram, Wu Jin," he called to his teammates, who were still hidden in the trees. "How many grenades do we have?" 6 smoke grenades, 4 flashbangs, and 2 tear gas, Wu Jin replied. "Use them all. Fill this clearing with smoke and noise. I want to see everything that's invisible." Boram and Wu Jin began throwing grenades into the clearing. Smoke billowed up from multiple points. Bright flashes lit up the jungle. Tear gas made the air thick and hard to breathe. But most importantly, the smoke revealed the shapes of 12 more alien scouts who were approaching the clearing. They appeared as person-shaped holes in the gray mist, moving through the jungle with advanced weapons. On the alien ship, Thexval was watching his carefully planned operation fall apart. 15 of his best scouts were now detected by 3 humans using nothing but primitive tricks and basic military equipment. "This is impossible," he said. "How are they doing this?" Morden studied his readings carefully. "Commander, I think we underestimated these humans. This one in particular seems to have knowledge that our computers cannot analyze or predict. What kind of knowledge? Ancient knowledge. Skills that have been passed down for thousands of years. Our technology is designed to fool modern sensors and equipment. But this human is not using modern methods to detect us. Thexval felt a chill of fear. If these primitive humans could defeat his stealth technology, what did that mean for their planned invasion? In the clearing, Taimin was now facing 15 partially visible alien scouts. They had advanced energy weapons and protective suits. He had his grandfather's wisdom and 2 loyal teammates. The odds should have been hopeless. But Taimin smiled as he looked at the aliens struggling in the smoke and natural traps of the clearing. His grandfather had always told him that the jungle was the greatest teacher of all. "The jungle does not care about your technology," he called out to the aliens. "It only cares about whether you belong here." He picked up a long branch from the ground and held it like his ancestors had held their spears thousands of years ago. "And you do not belong here." The real fight was about to begin. Taimin watched as parts of the alien scout flickered in and out of visibility. The creature's cloaking device was clearly damaged. Through the gaps in the failing technology, he could see gray skin and strange black eyes that were definitely not human. Kethvar was panicking. His perfect stealth suit was betraying him. Pieces of his body kept appearing and disappearing as the damaged technology struggled to work. He tried to retreat deeper into the jungle, but he was no longer invisible. "Zil Noth! Yex Tai, help me!" he called through his communication device. The other 2 alien scouts could see what was happening. Their leader was being hunted by a single human who seemed to understand things that should be impossible for a primitive creature to understand. "We have to help him," Zil Noth said. "No," Yextai replied. "This is a trap. The human wants us to reveal ourselves." But Zilnoth was young and loyal to his team leader. He began moving toward where Kethvar was struggling with his damaged equipment. Taimin saw the movement in the jungle. His eyes had become like his grandfather's eyes, trained to see things that did not belong. A branch bent with no wind to move it. Leaves rustled with no animal to disturb them. Another invisible watcher was coming. He reached into his pack and pulled out everything he could use: more flour, a small mirror, some string, and his water bottle. His grandfather had taught him that a clever hunter could make weapons from anything the jungle provided. First, he scattered flour in a wide circle around the area. The white powder would stick to anything invisible that walked through it. Then he poured water from his bottle onto a flat rock, creating a small pool that would reflect light in unusual ways if something invisible stepped in it. Boram and Wu Jin watched their leader work with amazement. They had trained with the most advanced military equipment in the world, but Taimin was fighting alien technology with flour and water. "Should we call for backup?" Boram whispered into her radio. Taimin held up his hand to stop her. "Not yet," he said quietly. "They might be listening to our communications, and if we call in helicopters and more soldiers, people might get hurt." He was right to be careful. On the alien ship, Morden was indeed monitoring all human radio frequencies in the area. "Commander," Morden reported, "the humans have not called for help yet. They seem to be trying to handle this alone." Thexval was pacing back and forth on his bridge. This was supposed to be a simple test of their stealth technology. Now one of his best scouts was compromised, and the humans seemed to be fighting back with primitive but effective methods. "How many more scouts do we have available?" he asked. 12 more, all with perfect stealth suits. Send them all. I want this situation contained before it gets worse." Down in the jungle, Zil-Noth was trying to reach his team leader. But as he moved through Taemin's flower trap, white powder began to stick to his invisible form. Soon, he looked like a person-shaped ghost walking through the jungle. Taemin saw the flower-covered alien and smiled grimly. His grandfather would have been proud. The old tricks still worked, even against technology from the stars. But now he had two invisible enemies to deal with, and more might be coming. He needed to level the playing field. He began to move through the jungle in a pattern that confused the aliens. He was not trying to escape or hide. Instead, he was leading them into an area where he had all the advantages. There was a place in this part of the jungle where his grandfather had taken him many times as a boy. It was a small clearing surrounded by thick trees. But it was not just any clearing. It was full of natural traps that had been there for thousands of years, hidden roots that could trip an unwary walker, soft ground that looked solid but would sink under weight, hanging vines that could tangle anyone who walked into them, and in the center of the clearing a small stream that reflected light in ways that could reveal invisible things. Taemin led the two alien scouts toward this clearing. He moved like he was afraid and trying to escape. The aliens followed, thinking they were chasing a frightened human. Kethvar's suit was getting worse. More and more of his body kept appearing. He could see the human running ahead of him, and he was angry. No primitive creature should be able to defeat Velkari technology. He raised his energy weapon again and fired at Taemin. The blue beam scorched the ground where Taemin had been standing, but the human had already rolled behind. "A tree! You cannot hide forever, human!" Kethvar shouted. Taemin heard the alien speak and was surprised. The creature knew human language. That meant these beings had been studying Earth for a long time. "I'm not hiding," Taemin called back. "I'm hunting." He reached the edge of the clearing and stopped. This was where he would make his stand. Behind him, the two alien scouts were approaching fast. They thought they had him trapped. Taemin pulled his small mirror from his pack and used it to reflect sunlight across the clearing. The bright light revealed both alien scouts as they entered the area. The flower on Zil-Noth's suit glittered in the light, and Kethvar's failing cloaking device created strange distortions in the reflected sunbeams. "There you are," Taemin said. He began to run across the clearing, but not in a straight line. He followed a path that his grandfather had taught him, stepping only on rocks and solid ground. The aliens, chasing him, did not know about the hidden dangers. Zil-Noth stepped into what looked like solid ground, but was actually soft mud covered with leaves. His foot sank deep, and he fell forward. As he fell, his cloaking device was damaged by the impact. Kethvar, running close behind, tripped over a hidden root and crashed into a wall of hanging vines. The vines wrapped around his arms and legs, tangling him up while his malfunctioning suit flickered on and off. Both aliens were now partially visible and trapped in natural snares. But Taemin was not finished. He could hear more movement in the jungle around the clearing. The sounds were faint, but his trained ears could pick them out. More invisible watchers were coming. "Bo-Ram, Wu-Jin," he called to his teammates, who were still hidden in the trees. "How many grenades do we have?" 6 smoke grenades, 4 flashbangs, and 2 tear gas, Wu-Jin replied. "Use them all. Fill this clearing with smoke and noise. I want to see everything that's invisible." Bo-Ram and Wu-Jin began throwing grenades into the clearing. Smoke billowed up from multiple points. Bright flashes lit up the jungle. Tear gas made the air thick and hard to breathe. But most importantly, The smoke revealed the shapes of 12 more alien scouts who were approaching the clearing. They appeared as person-shaped holes in the gray mist, moving through the jungle with advanced weapons. On the alien ship, Thexval was watching his carefully planned operation fall apart. 15 of his best scouts were now detected by 3 humans using nothing but primitive tricks and basic military equipment. "This is impossible," he said. "How are they doing this?" Morden studied his readings carefully. "Commander, I think we underestimated these humans. This one in particular seems to have knowledge that our computers cannot analyze or predict." "What kind of knowledge?" "Ancient knowledge. Skills that have been passed down for thousands of years. Our technology is designed to fool modern sensors and equipment. But this human is not using modern methods to detect us." Thexval felt a chill of fear. If these primitive humans could defeat his stealth technology, what did that mean for their planned invasion? In the clearing, Taimin was now facing 15 partially visible alien scouts. They had advanced energy weapons and protective suits. He had his grandfather's wisdom and 2 loyal teammates. The odds should have been hopeless. But Taimin smiled as he looked at the aliens struggling in the smoke and natural traps of the clearing. His grandfather had always told him that the jungle was the greatest teacher of all. "The jungle does not care about your technology," he called out to the aliens. "It only cares about whether you belong here." He picked up a long branch from the ground and held it like his ancestors had held their spears thousands of years ago. "And you do not belong here." The real fight was about to begin. Taimin sat on a rock in the canyon, studying the alien energy weapon in his hands. The device was smooth and warm to the touch, made from materials he had never seen before. It hummed with power that felt alive, almost like it was breathing. The captured alien scout, Feltar, watched him with nervous black eyes. "You should not touch that weapon, human. It is calibrated for Velkari physiology. It could malfunction and kill you." "Everything I've done today should have been impossible," Taimin replied without looking up from the weapon. "But I'm still alive, and 11 of your warriors are tied up with jungle vines." He found what looked like a trigger and carefully pointed the weapon at a rock on the canyon wall. When he squeezed the trigger, a beam of blue energy shot out and melted a hole through the stone. "Impressive," he said, "but it still can't see through bamboo traps." Boram's voice crackled through his radio. "Taimin, you need to see what we found in the clearing. These aliens had equipment we've never seen before." "On my way," Taimin replied. He looked down at his prisoners. "You're coming with me. Try to escape and I'll use your own weapons to stop you." The alien scouts exchanged glances. They had seen what this human could do with primitive jungle materials. None of them wanted to find out what he could do with their advanced technology. Taimin led his prisoners back through the jungle toward the clearing. As they walked, he noticed that the aliens moved differently than humans. They were not used to rough terrain. Their feet were soft, and they stumbled over roots and rocks that Taimin stepped over without thinking. "How long have you been watching Earth?" he asked Feltar as they walked. "2 of your years," the alien replied. "We have been studying your military capabilities and technology levels." "And what did you learn?" Feltar hesitated. "We learned that humans are primitive but numerous. Your weapons are crude but effective. Your technology is advancing rapidly but is still far behind ours." "What did you learn about human nature?" "Human nature?" Feltar seemed confused by the question. "What kind of people we are, how we think, what we value, how we adapt to challenges." "We We studied your military tactics and industrial capacity. We analyzed your population centers and resource production. Tae-min shook his head. You studied our things. You didn't study us. They reached the clearing where Bo Ram and Wu Jin were guarding 4 more alien prisoners. The area was littered with advanced alien equipment, cloaking devices, energy weapons, communication gear, and scanning instruments. Bo Ram was taking pictures of everything with her camera. Tae-min, look at this technology. Some of these devices are still working. The communication equipment is receiving signals from somewhere in orbit. Wu Jin was examining one of the energy weapons. These power sources are incredible. One of these guns has more energy than a car battery, but it weighs almost nothing. Tae-min looked at the collection of alien technology, then at his 15 prisoners. This is going to change everything, he said quietly. What do you mean? Bo Ram asked. Think about it. 15 alien scouts came down to Earth to test their stealth technology against human soldiers. They expected to stay invisible and gather intelligence. Instead, they're all captured by 3 people using flower and bamboo spears. He gestured toward the alien equipment. When their leaders find out what happened here, they're going to realize that humans are much more dangerous than they thought. Feltar spoke up. You are correct, human. Our commander will not be pleased with this outcome. As if summoned by his words, the alien communication device began making strange beeping sounds. Feltar looked at it with obvious fear. That is a direct communication from our ship, he said. Commander Thexval wants to speak with whoever is in charge here. Tae-min picked up the communication device. It was a small crystal that glowed with inner light. When he touched it, a holographic image appeared in the air above the crystal. The image showed a tall, thin alien with gray skin and large black eyes, wearing a dark uniform with silver markings. This was clearly a leader of some kind. I am Commander Thexval of the Velkari exploration vessel Silent Tide, the alien said in perfect English. I wish to speak with the human who has captured my scouts. I am Sergeant Tae-min of the Republic of Korea Special Forces, Tae-min replied. I wish to speak with the alien who sent invisible spies to watch my people. Thexval's black eyes narrowed. You have made a serious mistake, human. You have interfered with a Velkari military operation. Return my people and their equipment immediately or face the consequences. No, Tae-min said simply. The alien commander seemed shocked by the direct refusal. No? Do you understand what you are dealing with? We have technology beyond your imagination. We have weapons that could destroy your entire world. Maybe, Tae-min replied. But right now, 15 of your best warriors are sitting on the ground, tied up with jungle vines. Your invisible technology failed against flower and smoke grenades. Your energy weapons are useless against bamboo spears. He paused and looked directly into the holographic image. Commander, I think you need to understand something about humans. We don't give up just because someone has better technology than us. We adapt. We learn. We find ways to win that you never thought of. Thexval was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was colder. You are making a grave error, human. I will give you one more chance. Release my people, or I will come down there personally with a full combat force. Come ahead, Tae-min replied. But remember, your scouts thought they were invisible too. He touched the crystal again, and the holographic image disappeared. Boram stared at him with wide eyes. Tae-min, did you just challenge an alien invasion force to a fight? I think I did, he replied calmly. Wu Jin checked his weapon and looked up at the sky. "How many aliens do you think are up there?" Feltar answered reluctantly. "The Silent Tide carries a crew of 300. 50 of them are combat specialists with the most advanced weapons and armor our people have ever created. 50 against 3, Wu Jin said. "Those are terrible odds." Taemin smiled the way his grandfather used to smile when he was about to tell a story about the old days. "Wu Jin, have you ever heard of the Battle of Thermopylae? The 300 Spartans? That's the one. 50 aliens with advanced technology against 3 humans who know every tree, rock, and stream in this jungle." He picked up one of the alien energy weapons and tested its weight. "I like our chances." Boram was frantically working with her radio equipment. "I'm going to call for backup. Every Special Forces unit in the country needs to know about this." "Not yet," Taemin said. "First, we need to even the odds a little more." He turned to Feltar. "Your commander is going to come down here with his best warriors. Where will he land?" "I will not tell you that," Feltar said. Taemin nodded as if he had expected that answer. "That's okay. I know where he'll land anyway." "How could you possibly know that?" "Because I know this jungle better than you know your own technology. There are only 3 places in this area where a ship can land safely. I'm going to prepare all 3 of them." He looked at his teammates. "Boram, I need you to study this. Alien communication equipment. Learn how it works. Wu Jin, figure out these energy weapons. How to use them. How to disable them. How to tell when they're about to run out of power." "What are you going to do?" Boram asked. Taemin looked up at the sky where the invisible alien ship was waiting. "I'm going to do what my grandfather taught me to do when facing a superior enemy, which is, make the battlefield work for me instead of against me." He began gathering materials from the jungle floor: vines, bamboo, rocks, and thorny branches. By the time Commander Thex Val lands in this jungle, he's going to discover that superior technology means nothing when your enemy controls the ground you're fighting on. Above them, invisible in the sky, Commander Thex Val was preparing his finest warriors for what he thought would be a simple rescue mission. He had no idea that he was about to walk into the greatest military trap in the history of his species. As the sun began to set over the jungle, Taemin made a decision that would change the course of the battle. He looked at Boram and Wu Jin, who were still studying the captured alien technology. "I need you two to take the prisoners and get them to safety," he said quietly. Both of his teammates looked up in surprise. "What do you mean?" Boram asked. "The alien commander is coming with 50 warriors. This is going to be a real battle, not just a training exercise. I need you to get these aliens to our base, show the evidence to our commanders, and call in support." Wu Jin shook his head. "We're not leaving you alone against 50 enemies." "You're not leaving me alone," Taemin replied with a slight smile. "You're leaving me with the jungle." He had been thinking about this moment since the first alien scout had been captured. His grandfather had told him many stories about times when a single warrior had to hold off a large enemy force. The secret was not to fight them all at once, but to make them fight the jungle itself. "Taemin, this is crazy," Boram said. "Even with their technology, you can't fight 50 aliens by yourself." "I'm not going to fight them," he replied. "I'm going to disappear." Over the next hour, Taemin shared his plan with his teammates. It was unlike anything they had learned in modern military training. It was based on techniques that had been passed down through generations of jungle fighters, combined with what he had learned about alien technology. "The aliens rely too much on their sensors and cloaking devices," he explained. "They think that if they can't see something on their instruments, it doesn't exist. But the jungle doesn't show up on their instruments either." As darkness fell, Bo-Ram and Wu Jin prepared to leave with the 15 alien prisoners. They had packed all the captured alien equipment they could carry. The rest they buried in hidden caches that only Tae-min knew about. "Are you sure about this?" Bo-Ram asked one final time. Tae-min nodded. He had stripped off his modern military uniform and equipment. Instead, he wore clothes made from jungle plants, dyed with mud and natural materials. His face and hands were painted with patterns his grandfather had taught him, not for camouflage, but for psychological warfare. "When you reach base, tell them to stay away from this area for 48 hours, he said. "No helicopters, no drones, no radio communications. I need to do this the old way." "How will we know if you're okay?" Wu Jin asked. Tae-min smiled and pointed to a tall tree at the edge of the clearing. "If I'm alive and successful, I'll light a signal fire on top of that tree exactly 48 hours from now. If you don't see the fire," he shrugged, "send in the army." After his teammates left with the prisoners, Tae-min was alone in the jungle for the first time since the battle began. The silence was different from the modern world. It was full of life and movement, but peaceful in a way that cities and military bases could never be. He knelt down and put his hands on the jungle floor, just as his grandfather had taught him. "Help me," he whispered to the ancient trees and streams. "These strangers want to hurt our home." Then he began to disappear, not with alien technology or modern camouflage, but with skills that were older than civilization itself. He covered his scent with mud and crushed leaves. He learned the rhythm of the night insects so he could move when their noise would cover his footsteps. He found the paths that wild animals used, knowing that the aliens would not expect humans to travel those routes. Most importantly, he began to think like the jungle itself, patient, watchful, and deadly when threatened. On the alien ship, Commander. Thexaval was preparing for what he expected to be a quick victory. He had chosen his 50 best warriors, all equipped with the most advanced weapons and armor the Velkari possessed. "The human will not expect a night attack," he told his troops. "Our night vision technology gives us a complete advantage. We will land at 3 locations, surround the area, and capture the primitive who dared to threaten us." His second-in-command, a veteran warrior named Keltar, raised a concern. "Commander, this human has already proven he can defeat our stealth technology. Should we not be more careful?" Thexval dismissed the warning with a wave of his hand. "He defeated scouts who were not expecting resistance. We are prepared for battle. One primitive human cannot stand against 50 Velkari warriors." As the alien force prepared to deploy, Mordin, the science officer, made one final attempt to change the commander's mind. "Sir, I have been analyzing the battle data from our captured scouts. This human's behavior patterns are unlike anything in our database. He seems to be using knowledge systems that predate their modern technology by thousands of years. Ancient knowledge is no match for modern weapons," Thexval replied firmly. The 50 Velkari warriors boarded 3 transport ships and began their descent to Earth. Their plan was simple: land at 3 points around the jungle area, advance toward the center, and capture or kill the human who had humiliated their scouts. But as they descended through Earth's atmosphere, Tae-min was already moving through the jungle like a ghost from ancient times. He had studied the 3 possible landing sites and prepared each one with traps that would make the aliens' advanced technology work against them. At the first site, he had arranged mirrors and reflective surfaces that would confuse their night vision sensors. At the second, he had created false heat signatures using controlled fires that would fool their thermal imaging. At the third, He had scattered metal objects that would interfere with their communication equipment. But his greatest weapon was not any trap or trick. It was his ability to become part of the jungle itself. The first alien transport landed in a clearing, 2 miles north of where the original battle had taken place. 17 Velkari warriors emerged, their weapons ready and their sensors scanning for human life signs. "Spread out and advance south," the team leader ordered. "The human should be somewhere in that direction." But as they moved through the jungle, strange things began to happen. Warriors would hear footsteps behind them, but when they turned, nothing was there. Their sensors would detect movement, but when they investigated, they found only empty jungle. One warrior reported seeing a human figure in the distance, but when he fired his energy weapon at it, the beam hit only a tree trunk arranged to look like a person from far away. Another warrior felt something brush against his arm in the darkness. When he spun around with his weapon ready, he saw nothing but hanging vines that had not been there a moment before. The psychological effect was devastating. The aliens had trained to fight enemies they could see and detect with their instruments. They had never trained to fight an enemy who seemed to exist everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Tai Min was using techniques his grandfather had learned from indigenous hunters who had lived in these jungles for countless generations. He moved through the treetops like a monkey, used stream beds to mask his footprints, and created false trails that led the aliens in circles. But he was not just avoiding them. He was hunting them. One by one, Velkari warriors would simply vanish from their formations. Their teammates would turn around to find empty spaces where their comrades had been standing moments before. The missing warriors were not killed. They were systematically disabled and stripped of their equipment, then left tied up in hidden locations throughout the jungle. The aliens' advanced communication systems became useless as Taemin jammed, their frequencies using their own captured technology. Their night vision was neutralized by his careful placement of lights and mirrors. Their motion sensors were overwhelmed by decoy movements he created using ropes and pulleys hidden in the trees. By midnight, the alien force was no longer hunting Taemin. They were being hunted by him. Commander Thexval, monitoring the battle from his ship, watched in growing horror as his warriors disappeared one by one from his tracking screens. The human was not fighting them in any way the Velkari computers could understand or predict. "This is impossible," he said for the 10th time that night. "Where is he? How is he doing this?" Morden studied the sensor readings with professional fascination. "Commander, I don't think he's using technology at all. I think he's using the jungle itself as a weapon." "That makes no sense." "It makes perfect sense if you understand that he belongs here and we don't. Every tree, every rock, every stream is an ally to him and an obstacle to us." On the ground, the remaining alien warriors were beginning to panic. Their superior technology and advanced training meant nothing against an enemy who seemed to be the jungle itself come to life. And somewhere in the darkness, moving like smoke through the ancient trees, Taemin continued his impossible one-man war against 50 of the galaxy's most elite warriors. The ghost in the machine was winning. Dawn broke over the jungle with pale golden light filtering through the thick canopy. The night had been long and terrible for the Velkari warriors. Of the 50 elite soldiers who had landed on Earth, only Commander Thexval remained active. The rest had been systematically captured, disarmed, and left tied up throughout the jungle by a single human who seemed to appear and disappear like smoke. Thexval stood alone in a small clearing, his energy weapon in his hands, turning slowly in circles as he scanned the jungle around him. His advanced armor was scratched and torn from pushing through thick vegetation. His night vision equipment had failed hours ago, sabotaged by traps he never saw coming. "Human!" he called out to the silent jungle. "I know you are there. Show yourself!" The jungle remained quiet for a long moment. Then, as if the trees themselves were answering, Tae-min emerged from what had appeared to be empty air. He had been standing less than 10 feet away, perfectly camouflaged, using techniques that were older than the alien's entire civilization. Thexval raised his weapon, but Tae-min was already holding 3 alien energy guns that he had taken from captured warriors during the night. The message was clear. He could have killed the alien commander at any time, but had chosen not to. "You fought well," Tae-min said in English, knowing the alien could understand him. "Your warriors are skilled and brave, but they don't understand this place." Thexval stared at the human who had single-handedly defeated his entire force. Tae-min looked nothing like the modern soldiers the Velkari had studied. His clothes were made from jungle plants. His face was painted with mud and natural dyes in patterns that seemed to shift and blend with the shadows around him. He moved, with a fluid grace that seemed more animal than human. "How?" was all Thexval could manage to say. "How did you defeat us?" Tae-min set down 2 of the energy weapons, keeping one pointed at the ground in a non-threatening manner. "Your people have great technology," he said. "Ships that can fly between stars, weapons that shoot energy, suits that make you invisible. Very impressive." He gestured toward the jungle around them. "But this place has been my teacher for 30 years. My grandfather taught me its secrets, and his grandfather taught him, going back hundreds of generations. You came here as strangers, and the jungle treated you like strangers." Thexval's hand tightened on his weapon. "You are just one primitive human. We have an entire fleet in space. Thousands of warriors. Weapons that could burn this entire jungle to ash." "Maybe," Tae-min replied calmly. "But then what? You burn the jungle, you kill me, you conquer Earth. Then what happens? Then we take your world's resources and expand our empire." Tae-min shook his head. "No, Commander. Then you discover that every jungle on Earth has someone like me in it. Every desert has people who know its secrets. Every mountain range has tribes who have lived there for thousands of years. Every city has humans who will learn to fight you in ways your computers cannot predict." He sat down on a fallen log, still holding the energy weapon loosely. "You studied our technology and our armies, but you never studied us. You never learned what makes humans dangerous." "What makes you dangerous?" Thexval asked, despite himself. "We adapt. We survive. We turn our weaknesses into strengths." Tae-min picked up a handful of dirt and let it run through his fingers. "You have better technology than us. Faster ships, stronger weapons, more advanced sensors. But we have something you don't have." "What?" "We belong here." Thexval was quiet for a long moment, thinking about the night he had just survived. His warriors had been defeated not by superior technology, but by a deep understanding of the battlefield that no amount of sensors or weapons could match. "Your people are safe," Tae-min continued. "They're tied up, but not hurt. They'll have some interesting stories to tell when they get back to your ship." "You're letting us go?" "I'm sending you back with a message." Tae-min stood up and faced the alien commander directly. "Tell your people what happened here. Tell them that one human with bamboo spears and jungle knowledge defeated 50 of your best warriors. Tell them that if they want to conquer Earth, they'll have to fight 6 billion humans who are all capable of the same kind of adaptation." Thexval realized that this was not just a military defeat. It was a fundamental change in how his people would have to think about humans. What if my leaders don't listen? What if they decide to invade anyway? Taman smiled, and for the first time, Thexval saw something in that smile that reminded him why predators were dangerous. Then they'll learn the same lesson you learned, but much more painfully. Earth is not defenseless, Commander. We don't need to match your technology. We just need to make you fight us on our terms, in our places, by our rules. He gestured toward the jungle around them. Every environment on Earth has people who know it the way I know this jungle. Deserts, mountains, cities, forests, islands, all of them have humans who will turn those places into weapons against invaders. Thexval looked around at the jungle that had seemed so primitive when viewed from space, but had proven to be more deadly than any fortress his people had ever encountered. Why are you telling me this? Why not just kill me and keep the advantage of surprise? Because surprise only works once, Taemin replied. But fear works forever. When your people hear what happened here, some of them will want to come back with bigger weapons and more soldiers. Others will start to wonder if maybe Earth isn't worth the cost of conquering it. He picked up one of the alien communication devices from his belt. I've been listening to your ship's communications all night. Your science officer understands what happened here, even if you don't yet. He knows that technology alone isn't enough to conquer a world full of people who refuse to be conquered. Thexval realized that the human had been monitoring their private communications using their own captured equipment. The implications were staggering. If one primitive human could learn to use their technology so quickly, what could 6 billion humans accomplish? There's something else you need to understand, Taemin continued. I'm not special. I'm not the best human warrior or the smartest human strategist. I'm just someone who learned old knowledge from my grandfather. There are millions of humans with similar skills, and billions more who can learn them when they need to. He stood up and walked to the edge of the clearing. In the mountains, there are people who can survive in snow and ice that would kill your warriors in minutes. In the deserts, there are tribes who can find water and shelter where your sensors detect nothing. In the cities, there are humans who know every building, every sewer, every hiding place. Thexval followed him, beginning to understand the true scope of what an invasion of Earth would mean. You're saying that every human is a potential soldier. I'm saying every human is a potential nightmare for invaders who don't understand what they're fighting. Taemin turned back to face him. Your people are warriors, Commander. I respect that. But you're warriors who fight in space, on ships, with technology. We're warriors who fight with whatever we have, wherever we are, using knowledge that goes back to the beginning of our species. In the distance, they could hear the sound of helicopters approaching. Boram and Wu Jin had reached their base and convinced their commanders that the situation was real. Soon, the jungle would be full of human soldiers eager to study alien technology and learn about the threat from space. Time for you to go, Taemin said. He handed Thexval a small device, one of the alien communication units modified with jungle materials. This will lead you to where your warriors are tied up. Free them and get back to your ship. What about our equipment? Our weapons? Taemin smiled. Consider it a trade. You get to keep your lives and your knowledge of what happened here. We keep some of your technology to study. Fair enough? Thexval realized he was in no position to negotiate. He took the communication device and started to walk away, then stopped and turned back. Human, Taemin, what do you want me to tell my people? What is your message to the Velkari Empire? Taimin was quiet for a moment, thinking about his grandfathers, stories of old wars and the lessons they contained. Tell them that Earth welcomes visitors but not conquerors. Tell them that we're willing to talk, to trade, to learn from each other. But also tell them that if they come as enemies, they'll find that every tree, every rock, every grain of sand on this planet will fight against them. He looked up at the sky where the invisible alien ship was waiting. And tell them that what happened here in this jungle will happen everywhere they try to land. We'll turn their own technology against them, we'll use their strengths as weaknesses, and we'll make them fight us in ways they never trained for. Thexval nodded slowly. The message was clear enough. Earth was not the easy conquest his people had expected. One last question, the alien commander said. If we had come in peace, as visitors instead of conquerors, would you have met us differently? Taimin's expression softened slightly. Commander, if you had landed in this jungle and asked for help instead of trying to spy on us invisibly, my grandfather would have taught me to offer you food and shelter. That's also part of who we are. But since you came as enemies, you met the part of us that survives by making enemies regret their choices.